Okay, next we're moving on to a very interesting half hour. We're going to do a tea tasting, which I've never done before. Um, so, hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. We're going to do a
Good.
tea testing, tea
Yes.
tasting. Sorry.
Yeah, it is testing, but
Yeah,
not
kind
like a
of.
scary exam.
I'm not a tea guy, so it's all testing for me.
Yes. Well, good.
But
You'll learn, you'll hopefully have a new appreciation, perhaps. You don't have to like it, but you can have a new appreciation for it.
well, you know what's funny is I'm a coffee guy here, but I did live in the Middle East for quite some time, so I was a very big tea drinker.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the Middle East, Turkey, and Jordan have some great teas and things like that. So
absolutely.
yeah, I got into it for about 4 years, but
Yeah.
this team's got me working too hard, so I had to get back into
You
coffee
have
in
to
Canada.
move into the strength of the coffee, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes
So
it's a necessity.
sorry, we cut off enough of your time, and I'm going to let you go because we are late. The floor is yours. Let me know if you
Okay.
need anything.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen as an introduction, and I'm going to take you through what I would, normally do in a classroom. Okay, so I'm going to share that with you here. And let's see here. So hopefully you can hear me as I move through this. Just let me know if there's any issues. I work in the School of Hospitality, Tourism, and Sport. I saw that you had Professor Vince just prior. So we are in the same department together. And my job is as a professor of food and beverage, but primarily in the beverage realm. I'm trained as a sommelier, which is a beverage expert, mostly in wine, but then I went further on and became a tea sommelier. I thought it was very interesting. There's so much I found with my students internationally, where the wine culture, even the beer culture can connect. But what I love about tea is it really touches all parts of the planet. Not necessarily where it grows, but how it's enjoyed. And so I really liked that aspect of tea, and we now incorporate it into a few programs that I teach. One is into the Bachelor Hospitality degree program, and the other is the diploma program, the hotel and restaurant program. So we have aspects of all types of beverage in this. I've included my email there. Should you have any questions, if you're curious about what else we do in class, I teach in a lab, so we do all sorts of tastings in class. We learn theoretical components, service components, everything in between. So if you do have more questions about these types of courses and how they fit in the program, I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay. But why am I talking about tea, right? Why I've explained a little bit on why I think it's important. But we need to also think about our careers and the business world and what the future is, and why we want to learn about it, why we have it in our program. It's the most consumed beverage in the world, apart from water. Okay, so it's so widely used. And not only that, it's trending. It's the fastest growing beverage on the market as well. So it's become very cool in North America and beyond to drink tea again. Certainly I can speak as a Canadian. What we used to think was kind of a grandparent's drink is now all of a sudden cool. And there's many retailers that are offering tea that are appealing to younger generations and doing all sorts of things in service that make tea very interesting as well. So that's something we have to pay attention to and capitalize on that and get that attention and train our students in this. Why tea? Here's the issue though, and this is what we're going to uncover in this brief time together. The vast majority of Canadians who are tea drinkers, which they say consume 2 to 3 or more cups a day, that's a tea drinker. Statistically, 70% of them never order tea at restaurants, even though they're tea drinkers. So why not? If it's being offered and they love tea and they drink it, why aren't they drinking it? So that's what we're going to look at today. Okay. The most important thing I believe we have to narrow down, and the most important thing I tell my students is you have to understand what tea is, because even though it's such a common drink, we see it on grocery store shelves, we see it in restaurants, we see it in cafes, from big chains like Starbucks and Tim Hortons in Canada, to even small little boutique cafes. If it's so widely consumed, why is it so misunderstood? Why is it often second fiddle to coffee? Okay, some of it's historical reasons, but really it's a largely misunderstood beverage, particularly here in the West. What I really have my students understand, that if something is going to be tea, it has to come from a single plant, which is the picture you see here. This is the Camellia sinensis plant. And as long as that plant is in your steeped beverage, you are drinking tea. There's many types of tea, which I'll talk about a little bit. But as long as that plant is in there, okay, then you're having tea. And that's where the caffeine, that energy, comes from, is this plant. The biggest misconception, I think, is that herbals, so perhaps I take peppermint and I steep that, that's not tea. Actually, we call it tea. Same with all of these herbals out there. Unless that plant is in there, which largely, when we say herbal tea, it's not, it actually isn't tea anymore. Same with rooibos. Mate in Argentina is very popular, but it's actually not tea because it's not this plant. So we're using the term wrong by calling things herbal tea. Technically, these other products should be called tisanes. So anything that you steep in water, whether warm water or cold water, if it's not the Camellia sinensis plant, it's not tea. So we have to first wrap our heads around that and understand that the industry kind of has it wrong. Really, we have to be higher educated, and we need to push these more accurate definitions into our mainstream industry. Okay, so understanding that. There are 6 types of tea, actually. So you take that plant, and I'm not going to go through all the details. That's for my students to learn. But there's white tea. You've probably heard of green tea, certainly black tea. There's yellow, oolong, pu'er as well. So there's many types of tea, and they all come from the same plant. It's just how they manipulate that plant that makes a difference. Okay, so just very briefly, white tea would be the most pure. Basically, they pick the leaves, let them wither and dry, and they can steep it. There's very minimal processing with white tea. If we were to look at something like black tea, which is very popular in North America and in Europe as well, and Russia, what we see with black tea is they let the leaves have contact with oxygen, and they start to oxidize. They start to go brown. And think about an apple. If you cut an apple in half, the flesh of the apple, if you leave it in contact with air, right? Notice how it starts to turn brown. That's oxidation. And that happens to any plant. Once it's been picked, if it's in contact and open to the air, it will oxidize. And so that's what they do with black tea. They intentionally oxidize it, which is why when you steep it, it's a lot darker. It has more flavor and more intensity to it. It's that oxidative process. All of the other styles of tea have all different levels of processing that will therefore give them a different taste, a different flavor. You can certainly add more flavors to these. Like if you like mint and you add it to green tea, you can do that. That's known as Moroccan mint. And yes, so you can flavor any of these as well if you so choose. Now, this looks like a lot of information, and although I love testing my students, don't worry, no one on this live experience is going to be tested, but I want to point out something. And I'm pointing this out because this falls into the trap of this big misunderstanding we have with tea. Depending on the type of tea you have, you actually need to prepare it different. And this is really important, and this is hugely misunderstood, okay? For example, let's just compare green tea and black tea for this example. Green tea, the leaves are very tender and precious, and they're still very green in color, hence its name. You don't want to pour boiling water on green tea. You'll singe the leaves, they'll burn basically, and you'll get a very bitter taste out of your tea. Okay, so the water actually has to be 80 degrees Celsius, which is about 175 Fahrenheit. Okay, so much lower temperature than black tea, which I mentioned is oxidized, it's robust, it's more durable. And yes, you can put boiling water on black tea and you steep it much longer. So about 4 minutes is ideal to steep a black tea. Have a look at green tea again, okay? 2 minutes really is all they recommend, 3 minutes at the most. But in terms of proper serving, and this is through the Tea Association of Canada, these are standards that should be met in the industry, 2 minutes for green tea, okay? I'm highlighting that this is important because I want to explore this idea on why Canadians aren't drinking tea when they go out. Why not? So let's see a little bit more on what happens. I'm going to show you an experiment that I've prepared. And I like to show you this because this is something we do in class. Yes, we've had a virtual world, and I've been a bit of a film editor. So I've made tons of tasting videos that I've provided to the students. But on campus, really, I'm going to show you something we would do on campus. I'm going to show you the difference between the same green tea. Okay, I chose a jasmine green tea, but it's a green tea. Okay, I steeped it at the correct 80 degrees Celsius temperature. I steeped it for 2 minutes, but I chose 2 different methods. One I chose came from a tea bag, which is a standard tea bag you would see in the industry, in restaurants, in the retail stores, in those tea boxes. And the other I steeped as a loose leaf plant. Now, the difference between these, I will show you what the dry leaves look like. Okay, so here, this comes from the tea bag. And if you can see, it's like, it's not quite a powder, but it's granulated. This is what they call CTC, and it's cut, tear, and curl. What they've done is in the processing part of this green tea leaf, they've cut the leaves into such small little pieces, and it goes inside the tea bag, right? And we use that all the time. Now, this one over here, this is the loose leaf. So if you can see, it's larger leaves. They're twisted and turned, so they're the whole leaf of the plant, okay? And you can buy these sometimes in bags. You can find them in giant silk bags or larger bags to let those leaves move around. But for the most part, they're sold loose, and you would steep them in any sort of tea infuser that you have. But these ones are much more common in the industry, okay? The biggest thing that we see in terms of steeping these is that when you have something from a tea bag that has these little fragments of tea, there's more surface area with this type of tea. Because they're cut into pieces, imagine that many more parts of the plant are now coming in contact with water. So it steeps faster, it steeps more intensely because the water is hitting so many parts of tea that infusion is really getting a strong influence. Whereas the loose leaf, they slowly unravel in the water, and they give all of their flavor kind of more delicately because you just have these whole leaves in the water. So that's a little bit about the dried part of it. What I prepared is a professional cupping set that I'm going to show you. And these cupping sets are used in the professional tea industry. Many tea tasters as a profession, let's say that work for Twinings or Lipton or some of these larger companies, they will have perhaps 50 or 60 of these cupping sets, and they'll go through and taste them and make sure that the tea is up to standard or looking for flavor qualities, things like that. And what I've done is I've opened up the tea bag itself, and I've put it in here, and I've steeped it for 2.5 minutes, and then I've poured it into here. So I'll show you what these look like in a second. And then I've done the same with the loose leaf example, okay? So when you steep them and they come out of the water, should maybe switch the order to be more consistent with how I showed you before. You see how much the loose leaf tea unravels? Okay, so it really fills up a lot, takes up a lot of room, doesn't it? And the tea leaves don't, because they're pretty tiny, so there's nothing really to unravel there. The biggest difference we'll see in terms of this effect, though, is how they steeped into the cup. So when I pour it, and I'm ready, in theory, to enjoy my cup of tea, this is the exact same type of tea. It's green tea, jasmine tea, same thing, just different. Have a look here at, oops, I don't want to spill on my desk. Here we go. Have a look at the difference. Okay, so this one here is loose leaf. Look how pale it is versus this one here, which is so much darker, really at this point, I just want to show you the difference from a visual point of view. But this is important when we explore this more and we start to look at how this works in the industry. The last thing I'll show you is in class, the students are going to be tasting professionally with a spoon. This is what we do in the tea industry, what the professionals do. In theory, students would have their own cupping sets and they would be tasting with a spoon. Very loud slurp is very important. So I'm sorry to all the parents. They learn horrible manners in my class. They much loudly slurp their tea. So I apologize, but just for tasting. So you slurp it, and I want, the students to see the difference. So, with the first one, you notice a lot of floral, a lot of jasmine flower complexity. The second one, I have the students taste it and they feel this astringency, this drying effect. They feel intensity of flavor, lots more of the green tea leaf rather than the jasmine flower coming out. All of these things are done in class. They have tasting sheets, so they're writing down their notes. They're comparing with their other classmates on what they feel, how they taste it. So all of this is taught in class. And it's this aspect of hands-on sensory knowledge that we all feel at this college is so valuable. You can tell someone in theory how to ride a bike. I have a young child at home who's learning how to ride a bike, but if I stand there and lecture to him how to ride a bike, I still don't think he could really do it until he gets on the bike and does it, right? So that's what we're really about here. I could teach my students for 12 hours about tea and the difference between loose leaf and a tea bag, but unless they taste it, there's not that moment of full understanding. So we really do a lot of that in class, whether it's tea, coffee, wine, beer, spirits. We pair them with foods. We try all kinds of things to really give this important full understanding of what we're learning. So when they move into the industry, or students, as you move into the industry afterwards, you really have a fundamental knowledge and a high level of understanding on what's happening in this industry. Okay, so I'm going to move on a little bit from here, from the actual tasting part of it. And I want to go back to this original question. Okay, so why aren't Canadians ordering tea? What is happening here? The first thing I'll point out is this picture, the image you see of a drive-through. Very, very popular. There's a joke that as Canadians, we always have a hockey stick in one hand and a Tim Hortons cup in our other, wherever we go. It's just, Tim Hortons is just, or Starbucks if the budget suits. But this whole idea of moving around with our warm drinks is very popular here and in other parts of the world. But Canadians seem to have an affinity for this. And one thing I want to highlight now is, now that I've looked some things with tea, I've explained a few things. Imagine you're going through a drive-through, here in Niagara at Tim Hortons, and you order yourself a green tea, okay? And then you're gonna head off, to wherever you're going, really. Imagine the employees there, they're taking the green tea bags. So they're certainly CTC. They're these small little particles of green tea in that bag. They put it in a cup. The water they're using, is it green tea water? Is it 80 degrees Celsius? No, of course not. Think of so many restaurants that have one hot water canister, one temperature, that's it. So what happens is the green tea right away is getting burned. It's getting singed, right? Okay, so we have that. Now, I'm waiting in line, I pay for my tea, I get the tea, I put it down. After that whole process, by the time I drive away, it has to at least have been 2 minutes. So now my tea is starting to oversteep, right? Okay, so now it's really not gonna taste good. It's burned, now it's oversteeping. Now I'm driving. Okay, so now I wanna take this tea bag out. How am I gonna do that? What do I do in the car? Do I have a garbage in my car? I might. I mean, I'm not even that organized, so I certainly don't. What do I do with it? It's just gonna sit in there and oversteep now. So what I'm trying to say is we've done this all wrong. We've invited tea into a coffee establishment, and coffee's being served well and it's getting better and better. But we're kind of just thinking that tea can be served like coffee, but it's a completely different product. And so it's a huge miss, but the huge miss is an opportunity for us. And that's what I tell our students is like, this is your opportunity. If so many Canadians love tea, but don't drink it, just serve it properly maybe. And all of a sudden the revenue, like the growth from that is incredible. And what could happen? The other thing I'll point out is this menu. This one's actually from the UK, which is even more surprising because, you know, one of the stereotypes of the UK is that they like tea a lot, and that's being stereotypical. Not everyone can be included under that umbrella, but there is this association. Have a look at the bottom, the hot drinks area, okay? You have pot of tea, herbal tea. Okay, so first of all, herbal tea we now know isn't a thing. Espresso, double espresso, Americano, latte, cappuccino, flat white. Look at all the styles of coffee they've listed. Wonderful. Pot of tea, what kind of tea am I getting? Is it black tea? Is it even flavored like Earl Grey? Is it white tea? It's just kind of like tea is one thing and that's it. So if you don't even need to know the different styles. And that's a huge miss. So it's this perception that tea is tea and it's, you know, uniform and homogenous. And it's this misunderstanding. And the biggest thing, and what I love about the college, is we have a restaurant on campus and we are making tea the right way. And a lot of hospitality students get the opportunity to work in the restaurant. And so they're practicing. And the manager there, Sarah Scott, she has timers for each tea and she has kettles with different temperatures. So what we're giving them is an experience of service, but also guests are getting that like, wow, this tea, why does it taste so good? Well, it's being made properly for a change, right? And it's giving that opportunity. So all of this is not a sad story about tea. It's about let's make this better. Let's do something about it, and let's taste the difference. What are people getting mainstream, and how should it really taste, and how good is it when it's done properly? Okay. The last thing I'll just mention is that we look at things internationally in this program. So you'll see me making tea like they do in a Chinese tea ceremony, make authentic masala chai, you know, hand grinding with a mortar and pestle, all those spices. In Russia, making tea similar to the samovar, sipping it through some jam, all these very unique things, as well as England. And those are just four. I have students do presentations on, I think they choose from 16 different cultures that have different types of tea culture and tea service. So we look at things really globally and always tie it back as well to what's happening in North America. So there's this really good juxtaposition of perspective. So that's something that we do. And the last thing is we are always looking to the future, right? What's happening in our careers? Where is the industry going? As professors, we're very current. We have to stay, you know, really on the ball with what's happening. And we're all, you know, specialized in our own little niche. And so for me, I get really excited about what's happening with tea, how hospitality and tourism is linked. We're starting to see more tea tourism when this pandemic wraps up. Hopefully that'll continue because wine tourism is already a thing. Now beer tourism is starting to catch up and people are traveling to go to different breweries. Well, now we can see that opportunity with tea. We're seeing this hybridization with cannabis, which is also something that we're studying in another program on campus and looking at how those things tie together. There's a big non-alcoholic trend in the alcohol industry, which seems like a paradox, but it's this huge trend and tea fits perfectly into that. And you'll see there, we even have some breweries making, you know, tea with beer. We're seeing tea bars pop up with these, almost like a wine bar where you would sip little bits of tea and sample them and do a tasting flight. So there's so many ways to make and to brew tea better and to give those experiences to our guests. So we always discuss in class, like, what are the opportunities? What would you do if you had an idea? How would you do it? Where would you do it? Would you bring that to all different parts of the world? So that's just an idea of some of the things we do here at the college. And this is just a look basically at one little insight into what's happening in one class of many that I teach.
Thank you, Kristina. And sorry for cutting you short, first of all, but
No, absolutely.
actually, like, really interesting and really simple things to do, right? Like there's nothing complicated here, which I didn't even know, to make good tea. Like there's, like when you're just talking cuisine, like making some plates or dishes are very complicated to get them right, and just to get tea right, I didn't know it was that simple, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I will tell you that green tea does translate through any language, and any travel I've done. Can I get a green mint tea? Everyone knows what you're talking about, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
I do want to take this chance for our, I don't say it enough, and for as I lived in the Middle East and drank a lot of tea with a lot of Muslim friends. So to our Muslim friends, Ramadan Kareem, and
Yes.
I hope everyone here was watching Kristina. And once again, thank you so much. Very interesting. I like your colorful office there. It's very nice. It's
Oh,
better than
thank you.
my
I have my feng
flat
shui
wall.
going on.
I will let you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, and be safe, everyone. And if you have any questions, of course, let us know.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate it.
Thanks.